Everybody, welcome to the SusanDiPace Alumni Panel event. It's great to have all of you here, and we also have an awesome alumni panel. Some information before we begin. There's going to be food in the other room over there where we'll be migrating to after the panel is over, and we will also have a raffle, but to make sure we keep you here for the entire event, you have to be here for the raffle drawing in order to receive any raffle prizes that you might be receiving, so that's an important note. And another important note here, I've got a whole list, but it'll be done soon. We'll get to the alumni. This event is being brought to you by the Center for Career Exploration and Development and the Office of Alumni and Family Engagement. Round of applause. And now, this is the SusanDiPace Alumni Panel event. We've got our alumni panel, but you might be wondering, what about SusanDiPace? I've got a whole little bio here. SusanDiPace graduated in 1974 from Ithaca College's Humanities and Science School with a major in history. Her career was in human resources. Susan was a devoted alumna and enthusiastic volunteer, mentoring dozens of students, and served as a volunteer for the Center for Career Exploration and Development and Admissions. She returned to IC regularly to recruit on campus, speak in classes with student organizations and clubs, and she participated in local alumni club events and attended Student and Alumni NYC and Washington Network Nights. Susan served for 17 years on the Alumni Board of Directors and was vice president when she passed away unexpectedly in 2006. In Susan's estate, she provided for Ithaca College, creating an endowed fund to help current students decide what they might do with their degree when they graduate from the 5 schools. Susan believed that the path to employment is not necessarily a straight line, and that students can benefit from hearing from recent IC graduates about what they did in college in terms of both classes and co-curricular activities, leading to their first job, and continue to use what they learned at IC to further their careers. So without further ado, our panel here. We're going to start things off with, I'm just going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves and tell everybody about your time at IC, and then after that, we're going to open it up to audience questions. So while we're getting to know our panelists here, get those gears turning, and then when the time comes, just like class, raise your hand, and I'll call on you for your questions. So to start things off, I'll start right here on my left. Introduce yourself and tell us about your time at IC.
Sure. Well, hey, everybody. My name is Ryan Zapolski from the class of 2016. Almost 10 years out, which is crazy to think about. I try to make it back at least every other year or so. It's a really special place. So for the students, I hope you really take in your time here, enjoy it. And while I was here, I worked for the Phonathon program. I worked over at Cornell for the ice hockey team. So that really filled up a lot of my time. So it was a really great experience. And like I said, cherish every minute you can.
And what was your major?
Oh, I was a sport management major.
Hi, everyone. Tammy Mayberry, class of 1997. That seems so long ago. I'm sure some people in this room weren't even born then. I was a psychology major and politics and legal studies minors. I feel like I was the literal poster child for Ithaca College. I was on the cover of the student prospectus, the alumni brochure. I did a lot of work on campus. I worked in the campus center. I was on RHA, Residence Hall Association, and Student Government. I studied abroad in London. Woohoo! I did it all, I think. I was a President's Host tour guide, and then when I graduated, I was on the alumni board for 4 years, and I was on the board of our regional networking alumni association.
And I'm Gelu Suluguic. I'm from the class of 1999. I'm a journalism major. I only spent 2.5 years here, unfortunately. I would have liked to have spent the full 4 years, but because I transferred some credits from Romania, where I was originally from. I had all kinds of different jobs on campus, working everywhere from the dining hall to the library to the post office. Volunteered with admissions as well. Happy to be back here after a long period of not visiting the campus, and excited for this panel and your questions.
Amazing. And speaking of those questions, does anybody have any questions already? It's okay if not. I have some prepared if you want to keep those gears turning. It can be anything, specific questions for an individual panelist or just general questions here, like what do you do with your hands when you're standing at a podium?
I put them to my side.
Put them on my side,
But
all
not
right.
like that, not very, yeah.
So I have some questions here, so don't you guys worry. No pressure yet, but it's going to start cranking up here. So, and we'll start with Gelu down on the end and move back towards me, a little bouncy ball here. How does what you do now differ from what you wanted to do when you were applying for college? And then how does that differ from what you wanted to do when you graduated? Kind of two stages there of comparing your career to what you wanted to do.
Yeah, well, it is very different. In a way, what I do now didn't even exist back then, and I'll get to that in a bit. But my degree here was broadcast journalism, and as you guys know, there's a lot of quite distinguished people with careers in broadcast journalism that graduated from Ithaca, including the host of the last presidential debate. But when I graduated in '99, there weren't that many jobs in broadcast journalism, at least not in the big cities that I wanted to live in. And I found out that it turns out that there was quite a few business journalism jobs to write about all kinds of different financial topics and different business segments. So I moved to Washington, D.C., and I got a job writing about energy, and then one thing led to another. And I ended up working quite a long career in financial journalism for Reuters, first in New York City, and then moved to Denmark with Reuters. Did a stint with Bloomberg News, also covering business news. And then I ended up starting a company that used AI to extract and understand what is news and what is not news from various publicly available sources of information around the internet, and then deliver that news in real time to subscribers. And then that's how I ended up working in a field, AI-powered news that didn't even exist when I was a student back 20 years ago.
So, as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know what that meant. I watched LA Law. My parents said I argue a lot, so I wanted to go to law school. I was a psychology major. In hindsight, I think I should have been either, legal studies didn't exist as a major then, but I could have been legal studies now. But sociology was my thing. I'm really excited about how the world works, and I think that was very helpful for a law degree. But at the time, again, I didn't know what a lawyer did besides work at a big law firm. So as a politics minor, I got experience. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Marty Brownstein. He taught a class called Legislative Behavior. I learned a lot about how the House and the Senate worked, and how Congress works in relation to the White House and the judicial branch. So I really enjoyed politics, but I didn't know what that meant. I knew that there were senators and Congress people, but I didn't know what that meant. So I actually wound up going to law school in DC, and the career office was really focused on folks going to big law firms, but not everyone would go to a big law firm. So I did a little research, I had a lot of networking interviews, and found out that you could actually work as a staffer, either in the White House or in Congress or in other political fields. So that's where it took me. And I guess all along I knew that I really liked politics, but I just didn't know how to do politics. And that's where I am now.
Yeah, Lucas mentioned how SusanDiPace really felt like your career path isn't a straight line, and I think that couldn't be more true for myself. I started off as a sport management major here at Ithaca. That's what I wanted to do, is be a GM of a big team somewhere, and I quickly realized there's only, 100 teams, so the competition was pretty strong for those jobs. So I pivoted to wanting to work in a collegiate athletics department as a fundraiser, and I came in second place for the first job I ever interviewed for, but they offered me another role as just a general fundraiser. So I said, sure, I kind of need a job, so let's just roll with that. And sure enough, it led me down a path of exploration and kind of learning what I really loved in life and what I was good at, and it's fundraising. So I've really enjoyed that career so far. It wasn't at all what I imagined my life would be, but it's been my passion, and I think my advice for all of you out there is to just keep following that passion. Don't try to fight it. As long as you're happy where you are, that's what's most important. So Hopefully that answered your question, Lucas.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, panelists. Do we have at this time any audience questions? Not yet. It's okay.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy, guys. You won't sound silly. You can't sound sillier than me because I've completely buried the lead here. We're recording this panel for our Career Corner podcast, for which I'm the host. So if you want to maybe hear yourself on Spotify, some questions would be good. For our panelists, your careers are all very different, but the one thing you do have in common is IC. So if you had to pick the things that were most beneficial to you in your time at IC, whether it was a class or an extracurricular, what resources at IC prepared you most for your career today? And we'll start with Ryan.
Yeah, I think keeping an open mind was most important. When I was a freshman, I didn't really say no to a lot of opportunities. I remember one morning there was an email that went out. Email was our primary communication tool. I don't know if that still is true here, but someone needed volunteers to build a playground in the city of Ithaca. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. I've never done that. So it was me and two other students. We hopped in some professor's car and we built a playground. And my friends had no idea where I went. And I just came back. It's like, yeah, I got sand all over me. I built a playground. So I think for me, just the opportunity to explore the city outside of my education was honestly just as important as the in the classroom stuff. So just follow those opportunities, find something that might be interesting. And if you don't like it, that's cool. Like, move on. You don't have to do it again. Keep trying new things and explore what's available to you.
I can't pinpoint just one thing. I think it was everything that I did on campus. I also worked in the dining hall my first year. I didn't love it, but it got me to know my neighbors because I worked in the Terrace Dining Hall. So I got to know my neighbors that way. I got to know food service, for better or worse. Going to the London Center, I learned about an international culture that you couldn't learn in a classroom. We had internships. I had a government relations internship, which was incredible. It was an international and a government relations internship. Being a politics minor and having that legislative behavior class, being an orientation leader, I think all of it together was kind of what made me me.
Yeah, a big difference between the university system in Europe and the one in the United States is that you have a lot more opportunity to explore a little bit here during your years in university. In Europe, if you choose journalism, okay, then it's 100% journalism-related courses for 4 years, and then you graduate. Here, I knew I wanted to be a journalist, but I had a lot of space for a minor, which was also politics, for some electives, and sometimes the electives could be something completely with nothing to do with journalism or with politics. So that helped a lot I really valued that in my college experience here. And also specifically though, going back to the journalism, I don't know if any of you here are in the Park School, but it was a big advantage and something incredible to me at the time that we could just go and even pitch our own TV show and then be allowed to put it up and use the equipment and make it and then put it on ICTV. I did 2 of those. One was a good one wasn't so good, but they allowed us to use the equipment and just put a crew together and that's a big learning experience and also having fun at the same time.
Amazing. Audience. We've got a question. I'll just repeat this for our recording here from the audience. If you could do something differently in your time at IC, what would you do differently? And we'll start with Tammy.
I think I already said it, but I'll say it again. I think I would have had a different major. I love psychology, but at Ithaca, it was very science focused, and I love the theory of things. So again, I would have either chosen, if it was available, a legal studies major or a psychology major. Or a sociology major, I'm sorry. But I don't think anything else I would have changed.
And then Gelu, and we'll bounce back to Ryan.
Yeah, one thing I wish I would have been able to do is go here for 4 years instead of 2.5. Money was tight at the time, and I had some credits from another institution, so I was in a rush to graduate so that to keep the costs down. But I loved the experience, and it would have been nice to be able to take advantage of it for 4 years instead of just 2.5.
Yeah, I think, gosh, talking about changing majors, I remember sitting in an introductory class for computer science, and I said, who's going to need this? That was a mistake. So maybe taking that class a little more seriously. But I think, too, yeah, I worked a lot while I was here, and I didn't explore as much as I wanted to. I didn't go on like a big spring break trip with my friends. I didn't study abroad. So I don't know, maybe I would have balanced my time a little bit better and explored those opportunities more.
Yeah, amazing. Any other questions from the audience? Right here. Yeah, and just to repeat that, how would you balance doing extracurriculars and your schoolwork?
So I don't know if they still have it, but I spent a lot of time in the Student Activities Center, just downtime. Literally doing my homework, but at the same time, I was doing club activities, but it was great to have people where you have built-in study groups, basically. So part of that is just kind of figuring out a good balance of what you're enjoying and when you can fit it in.
Yeah, I can't put it any better than that. Of course, sometimes you might get lucky and have a part-time job where, by the nature of the job, you can squeeze in some studying. I worked at the library for a while in the language department, and so most of the job was checking in and out various foreign language, actually cassette tapes. I don't know if anyone knows what those are anymore. But so while just standing there waiting for students to come and request that week's Spanish homework, I could do my own homework.
And I would add too, if you find an organizational system that works for you, stick with it. Don't try to pigeonhole yourself into someone else's strategy. I find a lot of times in my career, some of my colleagues spend more time trying to be organized than just being organized. So just stick with what works for you would be my recommendation.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw some other hands. Yeah, so have other IC alumni played a role in your career success?
Yeah, should I
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier when I was in law school, our career office was basically here are the yellow pages. We don't really have connections elsewhere. So I came back to Ithaca College, and John Braddock was the career development person at the time, and he helped me tremendously. Also, the internet wasn't really a thing, so I had to go on LexisNexis, basically, look through papers to find anyone who went to Ithaca College undergrad and George Washington, where I went to law school, and I had an informational interview with that person who got me my first job out of law school. So, yeah, I don't think I would have been here where I am now without that connection.
Yeah, once I got my first job, I never actually applied for another job again. It just happened that it went from network to network to another person offering me a job, and so it just kind of never happened that I needed that. But before that, to create even a resume that was interesting enough for people to give me that first chance, several people at Ithaca had a lot of impact, and Ithaca graduates. I worked for a summer on Capitol Hill for a Democratic congressman, and his chief of staff had graduated from here, and somebody from the politics department here put me in touch with that person, and so I got this thing that then wasn't just an amazing experience for that summer, but also was interesting for the resume of a recent graduate that didn't really have any job experience other than dining hall and library and post office.
You should talk. I was on Capitol Hill, too.
Okay, yeah.
I would say absolutely. I forgot to mention I'm a part of the alumni board now, and it's a great group of people, and they're always willing to have a conversation with you about really anything, and I think that rings true for the entire Bomber alumni network, where people will always answer the call of another Ithaca alum, and they'll at least have a conversation with you. I think a good example would be, at my current nonprofit I work for, I was really interested in how we could partner with Twitch to gain an audience there, and lo and behold, we have 2 Ithaca alums that work there in VP roles, so they were more than happy to have a conversation about that and see how we could partner to move that forward. And I think that's just one example of a ton of stories that are out there that really showcase the power of our alumni network. And I would add that as students right now, I would work with Dave in the career office and just start having those conversations with alumni and just find an area that you think you want to work in and start to build your own connections in that area.
Can I have a quick little side note about Ithaca Connections?
No.
So I was literally driving to work 2 days ago, and I saw someone had an Ithaca parking sticker on their car, and his window was rolled down, and I said, "Go Bombers," and I scared him at first, but then we had a nice conversation at the red light about the things we were doing in Rochester. So we're everywhere, so feel free to reach out.
Amazing. Audience questions there in the back? Yeah? Yeah, so if you're, just want to try to make sure, if you're questioning what your major is because of a class that is required for your current major. Yeah, so if you're feeling kind of, if you're wondering about your major, do you have any advice for that?
Clarifying question, what year are you? Okay. Go.
Well, first of all, that is totally normal and okay. Just like throwing that out there, it's okay to like question the path. And for me specifically, I was fortunate to have a really good connection with my advisor here. She was my advisor, department head, rugby coach, professor, and like my orientation captain person. So we were tight, we were cool. And similarly, I had a class in sport management, I think it was like philosophy of sport, something like that, very like big ideas with sport. And I was like, this is not what I want to talk about, baseball. And I kind of talked with her about that, and she was like, don't worry about this one class, it's part of it. But if you don't like it, you can navigate away from that particular subject. But if it's a little more intense, I mean, it's always worth having a conversation with your advisor to go through that.
100%. I was thinking the same thing. When in my major, I had to take neuroscience and abnormal psychology, and neither one of them were interesting to me at all, but I think it helped me understand the major better, and I kind of just pushed through it. I didn't get the best grade in either, but I mean, it didn't ultimately affect my major and how I like use that later in life. So it's not going to define you, it's just kind of a roadblock. Now, if you don't like any of your classes, then it's time to like kind of figure out maybe you want to do something else. But if it's just that one class, I would say try to stick it out and talk to your advisor about it.
Yeah, I agree. You need to figure out, is it really just the class or is it the whole thing, the major itself? Maybe it's just the class, but advisors, in my case, first year I freaked out because the types of papers I was supposed to write, I wasn't used to writing those kinds of papers from back home. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I went to my advisor. I think this is too difficult for me. I'm not used to writing these things. It's all about memorization back home. This has got nothing to do with that. And he calmed me down and said, you're going to do fine. And yeah, there was one class actually that was a little bit tedious and the paper was huge and everyone just kind of slogged through it. But having a tedious class for me personally didn't take away from the fact that I did want to do a journalism degree. So you have to figure out that for yourself. Is it just the class or is it the degree?
Awesome. Any other audience questions at this time? It's all right. I'll circle back. We've talked about things at IC that were helpful to you in your career, and it seems the general sentiment there is explore, whether that be explore Ithaca, explore other classes, explore a different major if that's what you need to do. We've got some seniors here and some alumni that might be wondering this as well. What are some resources outside of IC that helped you in your career journey?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I never had to apply for another job after the first one. Maybe that's part luck, but I see it a lot. I saw it with my wife as well. She also never had to apply for a job after she got her first one. It's just, if you do a good job and you keep an open mind and you expand your network and talk to everyone, all of a sudden people will come to you and say, hey, this person is doing a good job, and I know someone who has a project that might be good for you. Are you interested? And then you speak to that person and you might take that job. That's how I moved from Washington to New York. That's how I jumped from Reuters to Bloomberg. That's how I found my partner from the AI company that I built. I just asked somebody to recommend someone. And yeah, through a third party, we found this guy who had been amazing. And so just keep your ears open, talk to everyone, and good things will happen if you do a good job.
And to dovetail on that, you never know who you're going to meet. Like, always be nice to everyone. I got my current job because my current boss was on the school board and city council when I was working for the state. And one day he just called me when he was elected and said, hey, I was working with you and I like your work ethic. So you never know. It's not even like active networking sometimes. It's just being a nice person, being kind to people, and being competent in what you're doing.
And to continue the trend of knowing people, I would say find a mentor that you trust. I can't tell you how many times my mentor has saved me and from some really bad ideas, but has also really supported me on the good stuff. So find that person that you trust, lean on them for advice, because typically they have already blazed the trail ahead of you, and you can kind of follow behind them and really learn along the way.
Amazing, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Best networking tips / secrets.
Be yourself and don't go in asking for a job. I remember I was here, this was many, many, many years ago at a networking event, and someone came up to me, so you live in DC, can I have a job? And I was like, whoa, I mean, that's great, but at the same time, like, get to know people and, be your authentic self, but don't go in with an ask automatically. Just, be like, hey, can we keep in touch? Can we do an informational interview? That kind of thing. Because I think that'll resonate better than, hey, can I have a job?
Yeah, I agree. And again, just to reiterate what you said before, just do a good job, keep an open mind, be nice to everyone, and then that's basically the networking that you need to do. Don't come on too strong, but yeah.
I'll add just it's a skill that sharpens over time. So the more you do it and get comfortable with speaking with people and working through those ideas and having those conversations, you'll get there. It takes time. And don't be afraid of the word no. That's the other thing too. People will say no to you, and that's totally okay. It happens a lot. So just keep workshopping your ideas, keep finding people that you trust, and keep following them.
And I think that's where a mentor would be great as well, because they can guide you through individual scenarios better than anyone else, especially if they've done it themselves.
Awesome, yeah. Any other questions from the audience right now? No? Next time? All right. So when you graduate, or when you're getting ready to graduate, or after you graduate, when should you start looking for a job, and do you have any tips for how to get that process started?
Well, I don't know if my case is the best, but because as a foreign student, I had a limited amount of time to find a job in the United States if I wanted to continue to stay and work here. So I started before actually graduating, about 3 months before. But it didn't seem to actually matter because I didn't find a job in those 3 months. As I mentioned, I was looking in broadcast journalism. That's what my major was. And then, so I spent my last semester at Ithaca trying to get TV jobs. And then when I realized that it wasn't going to happen, I just moved to DC without a job and looked in the paper there. Back then, they still had job ads in the paper. And that's how I found out, actually, there's a lot of business journalism jobs in this town, and maybe I need to look into that. So, yeah, I guess depending on your situation. But it doesn't hurt to start early.
I would say the same thing. My situation was unique because I went from Ithaca to graduate school, to law school. So my job search didn't actually begin until 2.5 years after I graduated from IC. But I think the earlier the better. I also, if you're going to a grad program, or if not, oftentimes your career advisor will be very helpful into kind of giving you a timeline for, like, in this field, you usually look for jobs at X point in time, because I feel like every career is different.
Yeah, I went to grad school as well, so it was a little more on a set path than just a job search. But I remember my first job search, it was scary. Like, you don't know what is coming next. At grad school, I knew it was coming next, but the idea of uncertainty is hard for me. So just have a plan A, B, C, D, E. Always have a response ready, just in case it does take a little bit longer, which is totally fine. It's hard to get a job out there, but I think Ithaca does a good job preparing you for that, and you have a lot of great skills that you'll learn over time or have learned over time that will get you ready for the next step, whatever it might be.
And just to go back on something, I don't know if this is valid for everyone here and for every different major. Maybe for some majors it might not be, but for me now as a business owner, almost all the hires I've made, they were interns first. So they came in, they were recommended already by someone to do an internship. It would be a paid internship, and then they did a great job, and then I would say, well, why would I let this person go? Now we should hire this person full time. So if you can in your field, get an internship in a place that you could see yourself working at when you graduate.
Awesome. Any audience questions? Gears are turning. Can smell the steam. Really thinking about those. Trusting you guys. Next time around, one question. I'm looking for it.
Hey, the questions have been great so far.
And
So
they
if you're
have,
scared
that's
to
true.
ask, fire it away. Like
Fire
we're
away.
happy to
It's been
answer.
good
Even if,
stuff.
you're not really sure of what to ask, if you have a concept, we can help you out.
A raised hand, thank you. Yeah, so that's a really cool question. Thinking back, if you put yourself back in Ithaca, in your time at IC, and you're on student government, what are some things you would like to change on the institutional level? It's a thinker. That's a doozy.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
was
really
like,
good
wow.
That's a
one.
great question.
The bar's been raised, guys.
Yeah. I feel like just student, I don't know how this translates, but just student input on more things. I feel like things, at least when we were in college, kind of just happened to us. And I was on student government, so, maybe a career, a major change. I wish there was more student input at the time, and that might have changed now, so, yeah. I heard a nope out there.
Maybe it's a communication thing. Maybe you just, looking back then, I don't remember exactly the issue, but there was something that the school did that some students said, why are they doing that? Maybe just communicating with the students through the members of the student council, what's the benefit for this, for the students now and for the students of the future, and also for the benefit of the school. The school, maybe that's one thing that students of today should know more of. What is the school's vision for 20 years from now? Yes, it won't impact you now, but this is a place that's just not just for you now. It's for hopefully generations and generations. So maybe it would be important for those who study here today to know what's the school's vision and what's the leadership's vision for decades from now, and then hopefully students could be behind that.
And I also have a caveat. When I went to college, they didn't have as much technology as they do now, so there's probably more opportunities to reach out, social media, email, things like that.
I wasn't a part of student government here, so I don't really have that experience, but I can tell you as you advance in your career, there's a lot of times people make decisions, you don't understand why, and you usually kind of hate it. So I think I would recommend just ask more questions and try to understand why decisions are being made in a way that you don't agree with, and you probably might not have a chance to change it, but if you do, respond to those questions that you got more information from your new understanding of someone's position.
Be an active participant.
Yeah.
Amazing. Any other audience questions? They're in the back. Yeah, so do you have any interviewing advice or anything you look for when you're interviewing someone?
This actually happened to me recently, and I think it's a cultural thing. People dress down now for interviews. I would say err on the side of dressing more. I wouldn't say a full suit and tie, but at least a suit jacket. Someone wore sweatpants to an interview, and this was in the mayor's office. So I would caution against, being as casual as you would be going to class.
I'll add a little bit before the interview process. Make sure you proofread your cover letters and resumes. I can't tell you how many times I've reviewed applications and there's typos, there's spacing issues, like basic things like that will just immediately, the door will shut for you. So do whatever you can to keep the door open as much as you can.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to have someone in if they didn't bother to proofread the resume. So make sure you get the foot in the door so that you can have a chance to make a good impression.
Yeah, awesome. Any other audience questions? Another one. Yeah, so if you were applying for a job right now, what tools would you use? What are the best tools you think?
Right now, as a recent college graduate, or as the people we are right at this moment?
Yeah, so either or.
Oh, I asked that question because when I was in college, I heavily relied on the Career Development Office, which is now Career Exploration and all the
development,
things.
yeah.
Yes. But I think at this point in my life, kind of to your point, is I rely more on networking, just because I feel like at our career path, like in our careers, it's not as much as like sending a cold resume as networking and kind of relationship building. So I think rely on your relationships, but at the same time, lean on your career office.
Yeah, amazing. Gelu or Ryan, anything on that topic?
No, I agree. I mean, at this stage in our career, networking is a lot, is basically the only way. I would try to get a job if I were looking for one. But if I were to start from scratch, if I'm still in college, career office. Otherwise, LinkedIn is actually quite good. But have, again, a proper resume and a proper LinkedIn page that is not too long, not too short. Spark that interest so they will call you back. Because on LinkedIn, yes, it's easy to find the jobs, but also a lot of people are going to apply for it as well. So you want to stand out.
And then also if you're interested in a certain career, because that made me think of it, go to that company or go to that organization's website and look at their culture and see the kind of jobs they're interviewing for, because they might not always post. But if you reach out and say, oh, hey, I just want to talk to you about your mission, and it kind of puts your face on the radar in a kind of a non-threatening, kind of informal way, and then if they are looking in the future, they can reach out to you because they remember you as a person as opposed to someone on a piece of paper.
And I'll add about LinkedIn too. You can also search by company on LinkedIn, so you can see who might be closely related to that place you're interested in working for as you build your network up. And another thing I wish I knew in college that I didn't know was that there's a lot of professional associations out there. I'm a part of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, and I didn't know that existed when I first started. So if you have a particular career in mind, there's probably an association out there for you. And they usually share a lot of good tips, tricks on how to get jobs, or they might have a job board available as well that collects all of those related jobs. So keep an eye on those, whatever you might be interested in. There's definitely something out there for you to follow along.
Yeah, great. Any other audience questions? Over there. Yeah, so what would you recommend for a student in, what was the program again? Healthcare? Student in healthcare who can't find an internship because they all require a master's degree.
So the internships require a master's degree.
Everything.
May I ask, what kind of healthcare? Because healthcare is kind of a big umbrella.
Speech, language, pathology, and audiology.
Can I just say we have somebody here who would like to talk to you? That's what you do.
There we go.
We did it. It's
That's
over.
Exactly
Question,
what you
is does that answer your question? You're just gonna talk to this lady right here in the front. Yeah, absolutely, if you want to.
So class of '89, speech pathology. I did a Dana internship, and so being able to, as an undergrad, and was able to work in my field as an undergrad. So taking those opportunities to do that, Also, if you can't get into your career, there's other things you can volunteer for or use as an internship at a center that uses your career. So, for instance, at where I am, being a teacher's assistant or working on staff as a one-to-one, so that you can work side by side with an SLP and then work your way into shadowing. Those are great opportunities to take and, start networking from there.
That's great.
Thank you. We have some more to add as well.
The floor is yours.
So I've spent pretty much my entire career at a place called Racker that is in Ithaca. And when I was, after doing physical therapy for quite a few years, I ended up doing administration. And they have a preschool program and also daycare, and I hired actually a number of students to work in the daycare because our daycare is both for kids with special needs and not with special needs. And it gave people a chance to kind of think, is this really what I want to do? And where do I go from here? It builds people that can recommend you for things as you're looking for jobs. So if you would like to check with me, I will let you know how to do that. And I'm very part-time at this point. I'm mostly retired, but I worked there for many, many, many years. So check in with me.
I guess
Amazing.
the short answer is be flexible.
The networking has already begun, guys. This is incredible. We're supposed to do it over food, and we're doing it here at the panel. Amazing. Any other audience questions here?
Did you? Oh.
Okay, raise your hands again, and I'll go back here, and then we'll jump over here. Great question. If you could talk to your younger self, what message would you want to give them?
Again, clarifying question. At the beginning of college, at the end of college, or even before college? Like, there are so many different things I would tell myself at different points.
How far back in the future
Yeah.
are we traveling?
Yeah.
Back in time.
I would say to myself, stress a little bit less about all these things we talked about before. Am I going to get a job? Yes, you're going to get a job. Am I going to do well in school? This is a new type of school for me. Yes. Am I going to have enough time to make friends and hang out with my friends but still do my work? All of that. And maybe even that'll be part of the message. Spend a little bit more time with your friends, actually, and see, do you really need all this time that you thought you needed for things outside your friends? I mean, obviously, it has to be a balance, and so stress less.
Probably buy Bitcoin would be the first one. I do the math a lot from when I was here at IC to now. I'm like, it was a missed opportunity. But no, I think kind of a low-key one would be to spend a summer in Ithaca. I never did that, but everybody that did that, I mean, so, for those who are going to be here a little bit longer, seniors might be a little too late, but...
Never too late.
Never too late. But consider it, don't just think about exploring here instead of just going back home.
I think for people who think that they have to go to a certain program or do a certain job after IC, think about why you want to do that. I loved my experience in DC, but in retrospect, I was like, I could have probably gotten all that experience by not spending $100,000 to go to law school. Think about what you want, not where you should be. Again, like, I went to a law school in DC. DC is not a state, so when I took the bar exam, I had to learn a whole new kind of curriculum. So think about that. Do you want to practice in New York State, for example? Maybe go to a law school in New York State, or maybe not go to law school. Like, think about why as opposed to just the what.
Amazing. Any other audience questions? So if you needed a portfolio, how did you build it?
I didn't.
No, I didn't either. I mean,
If you didn't need one, how would you build a portfolio?
Kind of like how to build a resume almost, right?
Yeah. Again, internships, and I'm not sure what your degree is here, but in communications, obviously, you have a lot of options here to try to, yes, it's student-run, but it's still professional, and it shows that you put in the work to create something that is, that stands the test and shows that you can do a good job. So use that, do as much student run work that you can in your field, and then, again, try to have an internship that you can then put on that resume and say, I worked in a real place, and they liked what I did there.
And definitely rely on mentors and advisors. I feel like in retrospect, we're talking about, what would you have done differently in retrospect? I feel like I didn't use my advisors as much as I probably could have, but they were always there in case you need them.
What's your major, or what are you looking to get into? Okay. I have no experience with that, so I'm just gonna level with that first. But I would just save what you're working on, and in class, if they're giving you opportunities to have freedom of expression in what you're creating, think about the future, like where you wanna work. Like maybe you wanna work in, I don't know, Coca-Cola, right? Work on projects in class that are for Coca-Cola, so when you're ready to interview with them, you have this whole package of stuff to give them, or you can broaden it to other things. But that would be my recommendation, is think ahead a little bit with what you're working on in school.
And I think writing samples, I remember like my early career, a lot of jobs would ask for writing samples, so hone your writing skills,
Yeah, amazing. Any final audience questions here before we end our panel? We've got two.
All right.
There are three.
Three? Oh my gosh. Let's try to fit
great.
all of them in. Start over here. Yeah, so what inspires you to give back to IC in the way that you do, and why is that important to you?
This is totally cheesy, but I love IC. No, honestly, I mean, my experience here was great. I was involved from the day I got here to today in different ways. It's just my passion. It's just what I find fulfilling in my life. Like, I can't describe it, and it's different for everyone, so.
For me, I mean, obviously, IC has done a lot for me. I wouldn't be where I am without my experience here. But also, I was always seen as an individual here, and with different needs that the school and people who worked here helped me to meet those needs. I had a graduate degree from an Ivy League university after Ithaca. It was not the same experience at all. I was just one of thousands of students. If you had an issue, well, tough luck. See if you even get to see someone. So I wanted to give back to this place because I had some important help here and some important experiences from some wonderful people that had helped me get to where I am, and I want to try to help other students have the same opportunities that I had.
What he said.
And I'll just add, IC gave me everything, really, like skills. My wife I met here. It's hard not to get emotional whenever I come back because I know how great my experience was, and I give back because I want you as students to have the same opportunities I had to really change my life.
And then we had a few more audience questions.
So people ask for a website.
Mm-hmm. I'll say the most common version of that is LinkedIn. That's your own personal website, right? If you make your own, make sure it's not empty. If it's empty, it's really weird. Like, what are you showing here? So I think I've seen a few in fundraising, which is not, it's odd for me, but just be proud of what you put out there, whether it's on LinkedIn or your own site.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't seen that. We interview in our office for, internships and other things, and usually people put it on their LinkedIn profile because not a lot of people know how to build good websites. Unless that's what you do. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah, and then that was a question on the importance of having your own website. Forgot to repeat it at the start. Are there any final audience questions here? And if not, for our panelists, we have one in the back.
I was just curious, you talked earlier about obviously not coming in and being like, hi, can I have your job? You do this and I do this. But like networking and being like,
Yeah, so you've networked, you didn't come on too strong, you didn't ask for a job, and now you're reaching back out some amount of time later. How do you kind of reintroduce yourself and re-network?
I think in this age of technology, it's a little easier because you can send an email and just say, hey, I'm thinking about doing X. Can I get your opinion? Can we talk either, if you're in the same city, have a cup of coffee or talk on Zoom, just to get kind of feedback. And that way it doesn't feel like, oh, hey, I'm reaching out because I want a job from you. But it's more like, hey, can we just be informally talking about what I want to do next? You seem like a good resource when we met a while back. And I mean, even if someone doesn't remember you, they'll play it off.
Yeah, and especially if you already had a contact with the person before. I don't know. For me personally, I don't find it weird or annoying that they reach back sometime later and say, hey, we discussed this, and here's what I'm thinking about doing now. And I don't mind if at that point they say, do you have an opening in this field that I'm trying to do? Or presumably we would have discussed something, a little bit more concrete, what this person wants to do and how that would be a fit if there ever were an opening. So I don't mind if they come back after a while and say, has anything changed? Can we get a coffee? And it works the other way as well. Actually, just my last hire, I emailed someone that I hadn't spoke to in 3 years, and I said, hey, I'm looking for someone for this position. Do you know anybody right now? And the guy wrote back and said, actually, I'm kind of looking myself right now. Can we, so.
And provide context. If it's been a while, that person might not remember exactly where they met you. And you say, hey, we met at this panel, we were talking about X, Y, Z, just to kind of refresh memories.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. Bring something back from that original conversation to help bridge the gap. This is very common when you go to professional conferences. You meet people from Utah, and you don't see them until the next conference, and then you try to talk. It's a little awkward, but you bring back the last conference as a talking point. So
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. And unless we have any final questions from the audience, panelists, do you have any closing remarks, any last bits of advice for freshmen, seniors, beyond?
Step out of your comfort zone. I know it's scary, but it's worth it.
Yeah, don't stress too much.
I would say just find a way to stand out. When you apply for your first job, there's going to be a lot of other seniors applying for that job. So find something that you're really good at and own it. Be really good at it and tell people why you're really good at it.
Especially you women out there. I'm going to say that as a woman. We don't sell ourselves enough. Sell yourself.
I agree.
It's taken me this long to be able to do that.
I agree. I've been trying, this is a little bit back in a previous job, but I've been trying to tell this one person on my staff when I was leaving, without you, they can't do this job when I'm gone. You need to ask for a higher salary because you're the least paid of this group. And she just couldn't bring herself to do it. Don't be like that person. Know your worth and then ask for it.
Amazing. Well, for our folks at home, I'm Lucas Kaufman, and this has been Career Corner. And for everybody here, thank you for joining us at the SusanDiPace Alumni Panel event. If you participate in the raffle, you have to stay to get your prize. And let's go eat.